welcome to this special edition of Vantage. We are in Paris, tracking Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit. He was in Marseille today with President Emmanuel Macron. They had a packed schedule with bilateral and business meetings, but the action will soon be shifting from here. Because as we speak, Prime Minister Modi is flying to the United States of America. That's right, Donald Trump is hosting Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi tomorrow. It comes merely 3 weeks after his inauguration as US President. So what's on the agenda for the meeting? Can Modi and Trump rekindle their bromance? We'll tell you what to expect. Also on the show, what are the key takeaways from the Paris AI Summit? Is India looking for a nuclear partnership with France? What did Elon Musk say in his first press conference as Trump's advisor? Why is Trump saying that Ukraine could become Russian one day? And what is China's answer to Elon Musk's Starlink? All this and more lined up. The headlines first.
Taiwan says it detected 62 Chinese military aircraft near it this week as 2 US ships sailed through the sensitive Taiwan Strait. Washington and its allies regularly transit the strait to reinforce its status as an international waterway, a move which always angers Beijing since it claims that the self-ruled island of Taiwan is a part of its territory. Canada appoints a fentanyl czar. Ottawa had promised Donald Trump that it would boost efforts to combat the flow of the drug across the border. This was in exchange for a pause on tariff threats. Canada claims that less than 1% of the fentanyl entering the US comes through its border. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán to host one of the leaders of Germany's main far-right party. This comes just 2 weeks before Germans head to the polls. It will be the first time that Orbán will welcome a politician from AfD to Budapest. Both politicians are known for their hardline anti-immigration stance. Syria will have a new government next month, says the country's foreign minister. The transitional authorities have ruled Syria since Bashar al-Assad was overthrown in December last year. The new authorities have pledged to hold a national dialogue conference involving all Syrians, but have yet to set a date. And Algeria, Nigeria and Niger signed deals on a gas pipeline to Europe. The Trans-Saharan gas pipeline was first announced in the year 2009, but the project has been given new urgency by a surge in gas demand worldwide. The pipeline will go from Nigeria in West Africa through Niger and onto Algeria.
It's been a busy couple of days here, but the action is now shifting away from Paris to Washington, D.C. That's where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is heading. He will be hosted by the US President Donald Trump. And this is a very significant trip because it's happening in quick time. Trump took charge on the 20th of January this year, and today is February 12th. Such early trips are usually reserved for American allies like the UK or Japan or Israel. So by hosting Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Donald Trump is sending a message that he prioritizes his ties with India. And it's the same for Modi. He has overseen a pivot in India-US ties. Historically, New Delhi has been suspicious of America, but Prime Minister Modi shed that sentiment. In 2016, he addressed the US Congress. He said India and the US have overcome the hesitations of history. So you've got two leaders eager to improve ties, eager to bring India and the US together. Now the question is, what can they get done? First, let's look at what is lined up. Prime Minister Modi will land in Washington on Wednesday evening. He's meeting with Donald Trump the next day on Thursday. After that, both leaders will have a private dinner at the White House. And leading up to this, Modi has 5 meetings. Reports say Elon Musk could be one of them. He's a key advisor to President Trump. He's also eyeing business opportunities in India, both for Tesla and for Starlink. Of course, all the focus will be on the Trump meeting. It's coming at a very sensitive time. President Donald Trump has praised Prime Minister Modi on many platforms, but he's also criticized India's high tariffs. Plus, his deportations have triggered a row in India. The opposition is up in arms over it. They say the US is mistreating Indian nationals. All of this forms the background to the Modi-Trump talks. So what should we expect? What are the issues that they will discuss? Before starting the trip, Modi released a statement. He highlighted 5 main issues: technology, trade, defense, energy, and supply resilience. Beyond this, there is also the issue of migration, both legal and illegal. India has said that it is ready to take back illegal Indian migrants, and that plays well for Trump at home. But Modi will be looking to get a concession in return in the form of H-1B visas. Indians are the biggest beneficiaries of this visa, but there is confusion about its future. Some Trump allies want to ban it. Others, like Elon Musk, want to continue it. Modi will be looking to get some clarity on Trump's position. He may also push for more H-1B visas. Right now, the visas are capped. Only a certain number can be issued every year. If Trump raises that cap, Indians would benefit. So that's one issue, migration. But the most contentious one will be trade. Donald Trump has not imposed tariffs on India yet, but New Delhi will be concerned. Around 18% of our exports go to the US. It is India's largest export market. If President Trump imposes tariffs, it will hurt Indian producers. In fact, it could already be happening. Trump recently announced 25% tariffs on all aluminium and steel imports. And this was not targeted at India, but we will feel the pinch. Reports say the tariffs threaten $1 billion worth of Indian exports. So Prime Minister Modi's mission is clear. He will look to strike a deal with Donald Trump, a sort of mini trade deal. The hope is to exempt India from the tariffs or at least get waivers on certain industries. But why would Trump agree to it? Well, he is a deal maker after all. So what is India offering in return? Mainly 2 things. One, India is revising its tariff rates, and we saw that in the recent union budget. The average tariff rate has been cut from 13 to 11%. Taxes on luxury cars and bikes have also been cut. Reports say India is planning rate cuts in a dozen sectors like electronics, medical goods, and chemicals. The idea is to show Trump that changes are being made, that India hears his concerns. So that is the first thing that New Delhi is doing. The second is buying more US goods. Indian firms are eyeing gas supplies from America. Talks are underway right now. The hope is to strike long-term supply deals. India is also eyeing US defense supplies. There is talk of buying American combat vehicles and possibly a deal on fighter jet engines. Again, this will delight Trump. He loves it when countries buy American goods. If you add all this up, one thing becomes clear. India has done its homework. It is offering concessions to strike a deal with Trump. But will it be enough to sway him? Maybe we can count on a third factor to do some magic. Their bromance. Despite the tough talks that await the 2 leaders, the Modi-Trump bromance is undeniable. Prime Minister Modi has worked with 3 different US presidents. He's had great equations with all of them, but his chemistry with Donald Trump really stands out because the 2 leaders share an affinity. They know that fostering personal bonds can underpin stronger bilateral ties, and we've seen it in action several times. Together, they have attended rallies fit for rock stars. And even on conversations of trade and tariffs, Trump has called Prime Minister Modi a quote-unquote tough guy. So there is mutual respect, there is eagerness to boost ties. Our next report tells you more.
India and the United States. These are 2 of the world's largest democracies, and over time they have become more closely aligned, whether geopolitically or economically. And now Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be the 4th leader to meet US President Donald Trump since he took office about 3 weeks ago. And this sends a clear message that the US prioritizes ties with India and that Trump prioritizes Modi. Both the leaders enjoyed warm relations during Trump's first term. In June 2017, Modi became the first foreign leader to have dinner with Trump at the White House. In September 2019, they arrived together for a public rally in Houston. The Prime Minister was welcomed by a cheering crowd of more than 50,000 people, and the 2 leaders showered each other with praise at the Howdy Modi rally. The following February, it was Modi's turn to invite Trump, and the US leader addressed more than 100,000 people in the city of Ahmedabad. The Namaste Trump rally was held at the world's largest cricket stadium. And this is where the US president said, America loves India.
The United States and India are committed to working together.
Now, over the years, punctuated by warm hugs, shared laughs, and rallies fit for rock stars, the two leaders have sat down for tough talks as well, especially on trade and tariffs. But it's undeniable that there is willingness to work together. PM Modi is more than willing to go along with Trump's muscle flexing while knowing how to get what India wants out of the relationship. It's a quality that Trump seems to appreciate as well. Last year, even before he took office for the second time, Trump called Modi the nicest human being who can also be a total killer. And during his presidential campaign trail, despite criticizing India over trade, he called Modi a fantastic man.
So when India, which is a very big abuser, he happens to be coming to meet me next week, and Modi, he's fantastic man.
And following Trump's re-election, PM Modi congratulated him, looking forward to renewing collaboration to further strengthen the India-US ties. And this speaks volumes. The two leaders share a lot in common. They know what they want, they respect each other, they are willing to work together, they have chemistry. And they know that strengthening personal bonds can boost bilateral ties. And now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on his way to Washington to do just that.
The dust is settling on the Paris AI Summit, so it's a good time to take stock. What did leaders achieve with this gathering? Has it made artificial intelligence better and safer? We've highlighted 5 takeaways for you. Number 1, nobody wants to regulate AI. Those already ahead want to stay ahead, and those behind want to catch up. The result? No one is talking about guardrails. They want to unleash AI with minimal checks. And we saw that with US Vice President J.D. Vance. He said regulation could kill AI.
We believe that excessive regulation of the AI sector could kill a transformative industry just as it's taking off, and will make every effort to encourage pro-growth AI policies. And I like to see that deregulatory flavor making its way into a lot of the conversations this conference.
Even Europe agrees. We spoke to President Macron on Sunday. He said innovation must come first and regulation should follow. He wants to cut back Europe's tech guardrails. The idea is to attract more AI players, but the downside is quite obvious. The joint statement in Paris has 6 priorities. Only one of them is even loosely linked to regulation. It says AI must be safe and ethical. Which brings us to the second takeaway. Political divisions are clear. That's why the US did not sign the joint statement. 58 countries signed on, but the US and its ally, the UK, did not. The US says it did not like the talk about inclusive and sustainable AI. Donald Trump wants to power data centers with fossil fuels, so sustainable won't cut it. And the UK says the deal is not substantive enough, that it doesn't go far enough. Now, we agree with that. This agreement is nowhere near enough, but that's no reason to reject it. If you cannot agree to the bare minimum, how can we move forward? Next is takeaway number 3. India's AI vision takes center stage. Prime Minister Modi laid out certain priorities like ensuring AI access to global South nations, upskilling to prevent job losses, and eliminating AI bias. Listen to what he said.
We must develop open source systems that enhance trust and transparency. We must build quality data sets free from biases. We must democratize technology and create people-centric applications. We must address concerns related to cybersecurity, disinformation, and deepfakes.
India brought a new perspective to the summit, one that went beyond the geopolitics. We will also host the next Global Summit on AI. India will be the host, so clearly India is taking on a bigger role here. It wants to shape AI's future. Which brings us to takeaway number 4. Europe joins the AI race. Initially, their approach was different. The European Union was happy regulating AI, not building it themselves. In 2023, they began drawing up an AI safety law. And last year, they implemented it. It was billed as the world's first AI law. But now the EU has 4 more. They have promised to relax the rules and cut through red tape. Their goal is to have a European AI model.
Too often, I hear that Europe is late to the race, while the United States or China have already gotten ahead. I disagree, because the AI race is far from being over. Truth is, we're only at the beginning. The frontier is constantly moving. Global leadership is still up for grabs. And behind the frontier lies the whole world of AI adoption.
And finally, the 5th takeaway, no roadmap for upskilling and jobs. This is one of the biggest fears regarding AI, that it will eliminate jobs, but the summit failed to address it. The joint statement says an observatory will be set up. It will basically analyze the impact of AI on jobs. The idea is to decide how education and training should evolve. Now, simply put, it's a wait-and-watch approach. And again, it's nowhere near enough. We are looking for concrete proposals and enforceable guidelines. Instead, what did we get? A lot of vague commitments. Just consider the portion on sustainable AI. President Macron spoke a lot about it. But listen to what the joint statement says. Our discussion led to sharing knowledge to foster investments in sustainable AI systems, to fostering international discussions on AI and the environment, to creating an observatory of the effects of AI on energy. In simpler words, he's saying we discussed it. That's the AI Summit's outcome on sustainability. Even tech companies are outraged. They're calling it a missed opportunity, and we agree. AI is advancing at an alarming rate. Experts say we could have human-like AI before 2030. If that timeline holds, we are simply not ready for it. You could have super AI systems with no guardrails in place. That is the path we are on right now. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Marseille today. He went down to the Mediterranean port city with French President Emmanuel Macron. They visited a war cemetery and paid tribute to Indian soldiers who fought and died during World War I. They also jointly inaugurated a new Indian consulate in Marseille. Prime Minister Modi also paid tribute to an Indian freedom fighter, Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. Savarkar is said to have attempted a daring escape from British custody in Marseille. And even though the attempt failed, Prime Minister Modi hailed the attempt. After all of this, Macron and Modi took a short trip to a research facility nearby, the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, or ITER. This is a mega project dedicated to researching nuclear fusion technology. India is one of the nations participating in this project, which makes sense, looking at New Delhi's growing nuclear ambitions. India and France signed a declaration of intent today to establish a partnership on advanced and small modular nuclear reactors. Our next report takes a closer look at India's nuclear push.
On the 1st of February, India threw down the gauntlet. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman was delivering the annual budget, and she made the following note.
Development of at least 100 gigawatt of nuclear energy by 2047 is essential for our energy transition efforts.
The Indian government sees nuclear energy as the future. It wants to increase the nuclear slice of India's energy pie to 100 gigawatts within the next 22 years. While 22 years is a lot of time, India is also starting almost from scratch. The country's current nuclear power generation capacity is at about 8.2 gigawatts. That's just 1.8% of India's power capacity. So there's still some time to go for the 100 gigawatt target. And that is why New Delhi is already on the move. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in France over the last few days. The main purpose of his visit was the AI summit in Paris. But he took care of other business on the sidelines as well. Prime Minister Modi was in the southern city of Marseille today. He inaugurated a new Indian consulate along with French President Emmanuel Macron. Then the two leaders made a declaration of intent to establish a partnership on advanced modular reactors and small modular reactors. They were referring to nuclear reactors for civil power generation. Basically, India is hoping to buy modular reactors from France. Small modular reactors generate up to 300 megawatts of power. They can start much smaller, generating as little as 10 megawatts. But anything under 300 megawatts is a small modular reactor, or SMR. An advanced modular reactor is a subset of the SMR. It uses a different cooling technology, but the principle remains the same. These modular reactors are smaller and quicker to build than conventional nuclear power plants. They're cheaper too, because their parts are prefabricated and usually assembled on site. So the modular reactors will allow India to hit the ground running and get a head start in the race for 100 gigawatts of nuclear energy by 2047. However, for now, India has just signed a declaration of intent with France. It isn't a done deal yet, likely because of a legal hurdle. Finance Minister Sitaraman had spoken about this during her budget speech.
For an active partnership with the private sector towards this goal, amendments to the Atomic Energy Act and the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act will be taken up.
India plans to rework its laws on nuclear accident liabilities. The existing law is considered harsh by global standards, so it has kept investments away. A final nuclear reactor deal with France is unlikely before India amends its liability law. But after it happens, the sky is the limit for India's nuclear ambitions.
Donald Trump took over the US presidency about 3 weeks ago. Yes, that's it. It may feel longer because he's been so busy and making so many headlines. He's been issuing executive orders like there is no tomorrow. One new policy after another. A lot of his orders have appended things, especially domestically in the US. Trump has been looking at downsizing the US government, and he has put one man in charge of this mission, the world's richest man, Elon Musk. The Tesla CEO is in charge of DOGE, which stands for Department of Government Efficiency, which is a misleading name because DOGE is not an official US government agency. It's a temporary office in place until Trump and Musk manage to quote-unquote trim all the fat, as they put it. But this throws up some ethical questions. How can a temp worker like Elon Musk have so much power? Is he really allowed to fire US government employees or even access their personal data? Where is the oversight? American courts are trying to come up with some answers, but in the meantime, Trump is busy empowering Musk and DOGE. The US president signed another executive order yesterday, directing the heads of federal agencies to consult with DOGE. At the same time, Trump brought Musk to the Oval Office. He gave his quote-unquote first buddy a press debut. And Elon Musk was not alone. He brought one of his children along, the one with a strange name. For convenience, we'll call him X. Most people do anyway. X is number 7 of the 12 children Musk has fathered. He will turn 5 in a few months. So tiny child in tow, wearing a black MAGA cap, the world's richest man addressed the press.
At a high level, if you say what is the goal of DOGE and I think a significant part of the presidency is to restore democracy. This may seem like, well, aren't we in a democracy? Well, if you don't have a feedback loop, okay, X, we would have to, if you it's all right. I tell you, gravitas can be difficult sometimes.
Musk went on to talk about his work at DOGE, like the federal firing spree.
There are good people who are in the federal bureaucracy, but you can't have an autonomous federal bureaucracy. You have to have one that is responsive to the people. That's the whole point of a democracy. And if you looked at if you looked at the founders today and said, what do you think of the way things have turned out? Well, we have this unelected, fourth unconstitutional branch of government, which is the bureaucracy, which has, in a lot of ways, currently more power than any elected representative.
That last part is quite ironic. Do you think Musk has more or less power than any elected representative today? Did Elon Musk win an election? Or did he just bankroll one and then latch on? Pot calling the kettle black indeed. Anyway, moving on.
Mr. Musk, the White House says that you will identify and excuse yourself from any conflicts of interest that you may have. Does that mean that you are in effect policing yourself? What are the checks and balances that are in place to ensure that there is accountability and transparency?
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, we post our actions to the Doge handle on X and to the Doge website.
People checked that claim. It turns out the Doge website had no information on it. Not when Musk said this anyway. And the Twitter posts are ambiguous at best. Doge also does not list out the people it employs or specifies its exact actions. But Musk says he's trying to be as transparent as possible. Right. The reporters also called him out on this. Musk seems to be spreading misinformation here. He agrees with the false claim that the US spent $50 million on condoms for Gaza, which is false. They were for Mozambique, to prevent the spread of HIV and AIDS. When asked about the lie, this is what Musk said.
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. But, if it went to Mozambique instead of Gaza, I'm like, okay, that's not as bad, but still, why are we doing that?
Again, the US was doing that to prevent the spread of AIDS. Did he misread Mozambique for Gaza when he claimed that it was the tip of the iceberg? Or did he not bother to verify the claim at all? This is the person who will decide the fates of thousands of US government employees. So good luck to them, because this presser has confirmed one thing. Musk and Trump will not be backing down. Let's turn to Ukraine now, which is nervously watching Donald Trump. The US president has made his intention clear. He wants to end the war. The only question is how? What sort of deal does Trump have in mind? He dropped an alarming hint this week. He suggested that Ukraine could become part of Russia one day. Let me quote from what Trump said. Ukraine may make a deal, or they may not make a deal. They may be Russian someday, or they may not be Russian someday. Russia is probably jumping with joy, but Zelensky will be scared. His goal is to break free from Russia's grasp, to chart his own foreign policy. But his biggest ally says, you could become Russian one day. It is a nightmare for President Zelensky. It is also a sneak peek into President Trump's mind. He clearly does not see expansionism as wrong, whether it's buying Greenland, or taking over the Panama Canal, or occupying Gaza, or letting Ukraine become Russian territory. Not only are these suggestions nonsensical, they are dangerous. And it's coming at a very sensitive time. Vice President J.D. Vance is in Europe right now. He will be attending the Munich Security Conference this week, and there he will meet President Zelensky of Ukraine. Kiev would have been hoping for encouraging signs, but after Trump's remarks, who knows? You see, Zelensky has been trying very hard to win Trump over. Last month, he almost cracked the code. If you want Trump's help, you must give him something in return. And Zelensky chose Ukraine's mineral wealth. The country has trillions of dollars in rare earth minerals, so Zelensky decided to offer them to Donald Trump, and he repeated that offer this week.
We're talking not only about security, but also about money. Valuable natural resources where we can offer our partners possibilities that didn't exist before to invest in them. For us, it will create jobs. For American companies, it will create profits.
Well, that seems to be Zelensky's plan A, sell resources for Trump's support. For a while, it seemed like he took the bait. But these latest remarks will worry Kiev. Zelensky's plan B is negotiation. He wants security guarantees before ending the war. He wants to ensure that Russia will not attack again. And who will give that guarantee? Europe may be willing to, but Zelensky is not happy with that. He says America must give the security guarantees. If not, they're not real. Well, first of all, ouch. Europe has waxed eloquent about protecting Ukraine from Russia, but Zelensky says you can't do it alone. I'm sure that hurt. And secondly, will America give those guarantees? It seems unlikely at the moment. Guarantees may involve putting boots on the ground, but Trump's defense chief has rejected the idea.
Would you be open to sending U.S. troops into Ukraine to track weapons shipments?
We are not sending U.S. troops to Ukraine.
Zelensky also has a plan C. a land swap. Ukraine holds Russian territory in Kursk. They occupied it in last year's surprise counterattack. Zelensky wants to swap it for Russian-occupied parts of Ukraine, but Moscow has already rejected that. And it's obvious why. Russia controls around 20% of Ukraine's land. Kiev controls a tiny slice of Kursk. Less than 0.003% of Russian land. That's what they have. I'm afraid the numbers simply don't add up. But all of this reveals Zelensky's desperation, his offer to sell national resources, his plea for US guarantees, his offer to swap occupied lands. All of this reeks of desperation. And Russia senses this. Today they launched a drone attack on the Ukrainian capital. 1 person was killed and 4 were injured. It shows that Putin is on the offensive. Plus he knows how to handle Donald Trump. This week Putin released an American school teacher held in Russia. Trump welcomed him to the White House. He flaunted him like some sort of prize. It's the type of thing that President Trump loves, which is why Putin offered it. Reports also say that Trump has spoken directly to Putin. Similar reports had emerged after his election win, but both sides refused to admit it. And they're doing the same thing again. No confirmation of a direct phone call between Putin and Trump. All this cloak and dagger stuff makes you wonder, what exactly is Trump's plan for Ukraine? Will he force Kiev to surrender? Will he defend them in exchange for rare earths? Or will he simply abandon them? From the looks of it, there isn't a plan. Trump is just winging the whole thing. His envoy is slated to visit Ukraine later this week. Perhaps that will give us some insights. Now let's turn our attention to China. After dethroning the US in the artificial intelligence race, Beijing is taking on Elon Musk's Starlink. In case you haven't heard of it yet, Starlink is a satellite internet service. Actually, scratch that. It is a satellite internet pioneer. And it is a global market heavyweight. For months, Beijing has been trying to break America's dominance in this market, and now it has debuted the answer to Starlink. China has launched the Long March 8A. This is a carrier rocket. It can send satellites to space. It can launch big batches of satellites to the low Earth orbit. And this is where Musk's Starlink has an oversized presence. So what does this launch mean for the satellite internet race? Can Beijing catch up to Starlink? And why is this a priority for the country? Our next report tells you.
A new Chinese rocket has taken off on its debut mission. The first Long March 8A rocket has been launched from Hainan, the island province in the South China Sea. It has transported a group of satellites to space and marked a major step in Beijing's efforts to catch up with Elon Musk here on Earth. You see, Musk owns Starlink. This is a US-based satellite internet pioneer, and it's a market heavyweight. And by proxy, it has helped the United States maintain dominance in this market as well. So, unsurprisingly, China has been pushing to enter the space. And now they have taken a major step towards it with the launch of Long March 8A. This is a carrier rocket. It is about 50 meters tall, and it has a liftoff weight of 371 metric tons. It is a modified version of the medium-lift Long March 8 rocket, which began flights in 2020. This carrier is designed to send up bigger batches of satellites in one launch. It has the payload capacity of 7 tons, and it allows Beijing to send larger clusters of the spacecraft to Earth's lower orbits, which is exactly where Musk's Starlink has an outsized presence. Basically, this one rocket can help China deploy large numbers of satellites right where it hurts the US to boost the country's speed-based internet networks. And this looks a lot like the artificial intelligence race, where China is trying to beat the US at its own game and disrupt the market. But can it work with internet satellites? Well, both yes and no. Yes, China is catching up quickly. Over the past few years, their government has poured significant resources to close the gap. Now, several Chinese outfits are racing amongst each other to launch mega constellations into space. These are large pools of satellites that work together to deliver broadband internet access, and they are being launched to fulfill the country's internet ambitions. But in all likelihood, it will be a while before China comes out on top, if at all. Because the competition is tough. The low Earth orbit, or the LEO, is a crucial space to get ahead in the internet race. So far, SpaceX has sent more than 7,000 Starlink satellites there. Plus, there are other US companies in the orbit, including Amazon, which expects to initiate its own satellite network soon with Project Kuiper. But that aside, compared to Starlink, China has been slow in building its LEO constellations. As per reports, this will be the year when China looks to match Starlink's numbers. So the world can expect more Chinese satellites to be blasted into space than usual. But Beijing being Beijing is often more talk than action. So only time will tell if China has an answer to America's Starlink. But until then, one thing is certain. As the geopolitical rivalry between the two nations heats up, Beijing is determined to keep pace with Washington, whether it's on this planet or outside it.
What comes to mind when I say Denmark? Some of you may think about Danish Vikings or Danish pastries. The business-focused ones may think about Ozempic, the weight loss drug made by Danish pharma giant Novo Nordisk. Well, whatever your first thought, perhaps you'll want to add satire to the list. Because some Danes have had a brilliant idea, a tongue-in-cheek way to counter Donald Trump. You may know about Denmark's Trump problem. The US president wants to buy some Danish territory, namely Greenland. Though that might not remain its name for very long because the US wants to change the name too. They want to call it Red, White and Blue Land. And I'm not even joking here. A US congressman called Buddy Carter introduced a bill yesterday. It is called the Red, White and Blue Land Act of 2025. It empowers President Trump to enter negotiations to acquire Greenland and also rename it. About a month ago, a different US congressman introduced this bill, the Make Greenland Great Again Act. It also empowered Trump to begin negotiations to buy Greenland. The new bill goes one step further with the abhorrent name change. It's almost as if Trump's party members are in a contest to see who can bow lower to please the US president. But that's US domestic politics. Over here, we are concerned with the Danes. How are they choosing to respond to Trump's takeover bid? Well, the Danes have decided to make a counter-offer. Instead of selling Greenland, they want to buy the US state of California. They want to make California great again. At least I think that's how you say it. I'm not sure about the Danish characters in the name. Anyway, you're looking at a crowdfunding website, denmarkification.com. Over 200,000 people have joined the campaign to raise $1 trillion to buy California from Donald Trump. Now, before some of you take this too seriously, I must remind you, this is a satirical website. Make sure to read the fine print before you pledge. That being said, let's take a closer look. The site lists out all the reasons why buying California makes sense for Denmark. The first is sunshine, as opposed to the usual Danish weather. Next is tech bros. The site says they are what every democracy needs. Then you have avocado toast, Disneyland, and of course, to protect the free world. And that last reason, to protect the free world, is lifted verbatim from Donald Trump. It's his justification for wanting Greenland. The Danes do not stop here. They list out the reasons why Trump might actually sell California. And top of the list is his well-documented enmity with the state. Go through the site and the jibes don't stop. Then there's the last part about Danish values. Rule of law, universal health care, and fact-based politics might apply. I'm sure a lot of Americans wouldn't mind universal health care. I won't comment on the other things. The petition ends with, sign now and let's make new Denmark a reality. Now, of course, all this is satire. It is ridiculous. But that perfectly sums up this entire situation as well. The US president wants to buy Greenland from Denmark without really caring about what Greenlanders want. This is the year 2025. How is that any less ridiculous than this Danish petition to buy California? The satire serves to highlight the absurdity of imperialism in the modern age. However, considering the laws American congressmen are trying to pass, they might already be up to their necks in absurdity right now. Our next story tonight has the makings of a blockbuster movie. It is about the Mafia in Sicily. This is one of the most powerful mafia clans in Italy. To give you context, it is the inspiration behind the Godfather series. Now, in recent years, the Mafia has been on a massive recruitment drive, recruiting a new generation of foot soldiers and teaching them the Mafia honor code. Also trying to recreate its once powerful ruling council. But Italy has just thwarted these attempts. More than 1,200 officers have raided the clan. They have arrested at least 160 mobsters. This is the biggest crackdown against Sicilian mafia in decades, and it is a major blow to the country's criminal top bosses. But will this be enough to solve Italy's mafia problem? Our next report tells you.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
Sicily's notorious mafia, the inspiration for the Godfather movies. For about half a century, they have held a grip on local towns and cities. They have terrorized the Italian public, making big profits from drug trafficking and illegal gambling, and extorting businesses for protection money. Since a fierce clampdown by the state in the 1990s, the Sicilian mafia is no longer the force it once was, but it's trying to regain its lost glory. Veteran mafia bosses have been making moves lately. They've been trying to recreate their once powerful Godfather-style ruling council, recruiting a new generation of foot soldiers, and ironically, urging them to watch The Godfather to learn the trade. These insights come after a 2-year-long investigation held by the Italian police. They wiretapped the mafia families, and this week they launched a series of raids. More than 1,200 officers targeted mafia clans operating in and around the Sicilian capital, Palermo, which remains in the grip of the Cosa Nostra clans. This is one of Italy's wealthiest and most powerful mafia, and the police have launched their biggest operation against them in decades. They have issued warrants against 183 people and arrested at least 160 members of the Cosa Nostra for crimes including mafia-style criminal association, attempted murder, extortion, drug trafficking and illegal gambling.
I want to say that this morning's operation follows other significant actions that demonstrate both the vitality of the criminal organization and the resilience and ability of the state to respond.
Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, has hailed the operation. She says that this confirms the state's constant commitment to the fight against organized crime. But that's not all. You see, Italian organized crime functions through a multifaceted web. And there are 3 big players: the Cosa Nostra from Sicily, Camorra from Campania, and 'Ndrangheta from Calabria, and many of these mobsters work together. So the anti-mafia blitz is a major step towards dismantling one of these mafia clans. It has dealt a blow to the Italian mafia in general, and more importantly, it provides insight into how they operate.
2 key points emerged from all this work. The first is that the mafia organization is absolutely active, conducting business and, above all, seeking to rebuild the army it needs to regain the power it once had. The second point is that those who have been imprisoned return to their criminal activities once they are released.
Mafia clans in Italy have an impressive ability to regenerate. Put them in jail, and they smuggle tiny mobile phones into their cells to continue their business. Focus on halting drug trafficking, which is a significant source of the mafia income, and the clans diversify. They force traders to use their products, like taking control of distributing seafood to restaurants in Sicily. Or keep track of their movements, and they change their behavior to survive. They resolve disputes among themselves to avoid attracting attention. So despite numerous arrests over the years, the Sicilian mobsters have managed to have a wide network of informants. They have been successful in attracting a large number of youngsters. And they have retained the Mafia honor code of membership until death. So while the crackdown by the Sicilian police was massive, it may not be enough to detangle the Mafia web once and for all. But it certainly brings the authorities one step closer to finally being able to say, leave the gun, take the cannoli.
Our last story tonight is about another war that is afoot in Italy. But this one is not about mafia crime lords. It is about a fight between a TikTok influencer and Italian ski resorts. You see, about 2 weeks ago, an influencer posted about a ski resort on TikTok and her post went viral and soon chaos erupted at the resort. About 10,000 day trippers visited the slope on the same day, causing traffic snarls and inducing emergency crowd control measures. And the TikTok star was blamed for it. So now she is taking revenge and she has urged her 2 million TikTok followers to invade is the word she used, another ski resort nearby. Turns out this is not a unique story after all. Our next report tells you how tourist destinations are bearing the brunt of social media fandom.
It all started at Roccaraso. This is one of Italy's most popular skiing destinations, and 2 weeks ago it went viral. All thanks to this influencer. She's a TikTok star and she uploaded posts on social media about bumper snowfalls at the skiing destination. So the tour companies caught on. They organized cheap tour buses for people to enjoy the scenic mountains, and matters soon snowballed. The ski resort was flooded with about 10,000 day trippers, extreme traffic snarls, chaotic scenes on the slopes, and bad behavior, including barbecuing on the mountains and leaving trash there. Then came the onslaught of complaints from residents and some visitors. Emergency crowd control measures were deployed and the influencer was blamed for the kerfuffle. But the snowstorm hasn't blown over yet. She wasn't going to take this accusation lying down, so she set out to ski again. She said that she could get paid for giving resorts free publicity, and then she escalated the matter by urging her 2 million followers to invade another skiing destination. She told them to head to Ovindoli, a small ski town in central Italy. It was an open challenge, so preempting the onslaught, authorities stepped in, police was deployed, buses were turned away, and the army was kept on standby. It sounds a bit much, but this is part of a growing trend. Overtourism, fueled by TikTok and selfies, has become the enemy of small destinations. And they are forcing one nation after another to take harsh measures. We saw this with Japan recently. In Otaru, a small picturesque port city, overtourism has wreaked havoc. So the city has stepped up measures. It has hired bouncers to control crowds. Security guards have been deployed to police selfie-taking tourists. And this isn't the first time Japan has taken unusual measures to manage visitors. In Kawaguchiko, where tourists come in droves to click the perfect shot of Mount Fuji, local officials have cracked down on overtourism. Last year, they built a large black screen to cover the view. Around the same time, Austrian residents did something similar. They became fed up with visitors making videos against the backdrop of Hallstatt. This is a mountain town that's said to have inspired Disney's animated film Frozen. This town has gone viral on social media. So, over 1 million tourists descend on the destination to click selfies and make videos. But the residents got so frustrated, they put up a fence blocking the view. It was later removed after outrage on social media. Guidebooks and travel magazines are no longer the only authority on destinations to visit. Social media dictates itineraries now. Tourists flock to Instagram-worthy destinations. They do TikTok dances against the backdrop of historic attractions. But beyond the aesthetics, this is what the behind the scenes looks like. Tourist stampedes, traffic jams, misbehavior, harm to the environment, to the local communities, and even the tourists themselves. So while tourism continues to boom, it's time tourists themselves make some room for traveling with responsibility.
And now it is time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. In the US, as Trump and Elon Musk defend the federal restructuring, Musk's 4-year-old son offers a welcome distraction. In Russia, authorities rescued nearly 140 fishermen stranded on floating ice. In Italy, lava meets snow as Mount Etna erupts. And finally, we are taking you back in history. On this day in 1996, Yasser Arafat took office as the first Palestinian president. He was seen as a towering figure for Palestinian statehood. The long-standing leader died in 2004. We are leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
What's your response to that criticism?
The presidency is to restore democracy. This may seem like, well, aren't we in a democracy? Well, if you don't have a feedback loop, FAX, we would have to, if you, sorry.
This is X.
Bang for the buck, I would say it was not very good. And there was far too much of what USAID was doing was influencing elections.
We're calling the show Vantage. We hope you like what we put together for you. Touted as the minimum defense from that video. India's neighbors were the first to send the special edition of Vantage live from the White House throughout the week. Hindu Mandir we're on our way to Tel Aviv. Pretty measure, but it's also the perfect way to drive.
I don't think that
Prime Minister of Bhutan, Sherin Thagbir. Welcome to
60% of the world's
office. Prime Minister Modi did the iron.
We were actually.
How are you doing? How do you like? It's been 1 year since that meeting. Iron bars separate you from the outside. Out the vote efforts. Trump had, it says, and at $4.3 trillion, 300 billion by 2030. That's what we need to tackle climate change.